Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 214, October 7th, 2017, Saturday. Welcome to the Saturday edition of TowerGate, and hopefully you're all happy that I actually got the video uploaded before midnight on a Saturday. I'm going to try to get the videos uploaded much earlier on Saturday and Sunday than I have been doing because they just get uploaded so late. So anyway, this is my attempt at doing that. But I want to touch on just two things really I want to focus on in today's video. I want to touch briefly on I want to respond to a comment that was made by someone who's not a regular, visitor to the site, someone who just kind of popped in and accused me of being 100% incorrect about my claim that Christopher Steele does not want to testify in front of Congress. I want to comment on that and respond to that commenter, and then I want to focus in on Stephen Paddock, and again the shooter in Las Vegas. And we still have really the two big questions: what was his motive? What motivated him to do what he did? And the more important question that you almost have to answer before you get there is, who was Stephen Paddock? I mean, we're still trying to figure out exactly who this guy was. I have some thoughts on this, and I'll get to that. But first, let me deal with this commenter. First of all, the link that he left, I went and checked out that link. It's a link to MSNBC's Rachel Madcow, which we all know MSNBC is very fake news. We know that Rachel Madcow is a very fake news person. She's not a real journalist. She's a fraud. She is still trying to sell the Trump-Russia collusion narrative is the reason why Hillary lost the election, because Madcow just simply can't come to terms with the reality that just about everyone else has accepted who has any common sense and sanity, that there's nothing to it. But she has no choice because she's all in on this. She cannot really maintain any credibility and come out and tell her viewing audience that she was wrong. She has never come out and admitted she was wrong about anything. Remember when she told us that there was no way Trump could win? Remember when she told us that Hillary might win 47 or 48 states because Trump had no chance of winning? We all remember that back from the election. She's been wrong about everything. But the only thing she can really do is double down. Now she's floating this story that's alleging that Christopher Steele's dying to talk to the Congress. Oh, she's also stating that Glenn Simpson has been so forthright to come out, and he's been willing to testify, to go to Congress, to answer all them questions. He sent them 40,000 pages of documents, blah, 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 blah. This is all the garbage that's contained in that interview, that video that was left as a link by this individual who goes by the handle Fall Speed. Well, Fall Speed, you're a moron. I don't even know you, but I can just tell by the link that you posted, you are a moron. You gobble up the garbage, the crap, and the lies of the fake news media and the fake journalist Rachel Madcow. So let me correct you, Mr. False Speed, and hopefully get you straight. I stated that Steele has avoided and has not been willing to come and testify in front of the various congressional committees that have been seeking his testimony. We have the Senate Intelligence Committee headed by Chuck Grassley. We have the Oversight Committee of the House, now headed by Trey Gowdy. We have the Judiciary Committee. We have another committee. I'm trying to think the committee that's... can't even think of that committee, but there's basically 3 or 4 committees in the Congress who have been, for the past 7-8 months, trying to get Christopher Steele to testify regarding the dossier. He has refused. He has refused. To say, for Madcow to say that he's been willing to testify, he just recently, over the summer, apparently was interviewed by the FBI, by Mueller and his team. That's what's being reported. We have no details about what he said or anything else. We're just learning that a couple days ago that Mueller had his people go over to London and speak to Christopher Steele. As far as him avoiding wanting to testify or whatever in front of Congress, There's multiple stories, Mr. Fall Speed, multiple stories covered by many, many different news organizations that Christopher Steele would not respond or would not testify in the Congress. They tried to even subpoena him. Mr. Grassley's committee tried to subpoena him, but they found out they really could not because he is a British citizen. The Congress cannot compel Mr. Steele to testify because he is a British citizen. But Mr. Fallspeed, Rachel Madcow's lying to you. Many, many news stories. Google it for yourself. Research it for yourself. You will find that these congressional committees have been trying to get Mr. Steele to testify or answer some questions. He will not do it. He will not do it. In fact, we just did a story here on TowerGate probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, where the Republicans on that committee, I believe Mr. Nunes's committee, the House Intelligence Committee, actually sent a couple of investigators over to London to his company, where he has a company in London. We're talking about Christopher Steele. They were going to pay him a surprise visit. But once they entered the building, and it was known that they were in the building, Mr. Steele slipped out the back door. He split. He got away. He didn't want to talk to those investigators who Devin Nunes had sent over there. He's avoiding them. Not only will he not come and testify, when they go out to try to talk to him, he splits the scene. But I guess Mueller's people were able to have a sit down with him, but we haven't learned a damn thing about what he said. But we do know about the court filings in the lawsuit with Mr. Gubarev. We do know about that because I've been covering them on TowerGate. We've talked a lot about the dossier and about the Gubarev lawsuit versus Mr. Steele. And we know from the court filings, Mr. Fallspeed, and the court filings, Mr. Steele's attorneys are saying that, hey, Mr. Steele did not give his approval to BuzzFeed to release the story. Mr. Steele did not approve of that. In fact, he made it perfectly clear that the only people he intended to have this dossier shared with was the law enforcement and intelligence community. He says he had no intention of having it being made public, and even Mr. Steele will not stand behind his own dossier. When you look at the court filings and you look at what his attorneys are saying, he himself is not willing to go there and go to bat for his very own dossier in this lawsuit against where he's being sued by Mr. Gubarev. So this is completely wrong, Mr. Fallspeed. You talked about Fusion GPS. Oh, he's turned over 40,000 pages of documents. He's answered all the questions. He volunteered to come in and speak. No, Mr. Fallspeed, go back and look at the damn facts. Look at the facts. They tried to get Mr. Glenn. They tried to get what's his name to come in there from GPS Fusion, Glenn Simpson. They tried to get him for months and months and months. He kept refusing, Mr. Fallspeed. He kept refusing. Finally, they subpoenaed him. And when the subpoena time came and went, on the day that he was supposed to be there, his lawyer sent a statement saying that he was going to be going on vacation and wouldn't be available for the hearings. Then, a week later, he changes his mind and decides he will be there for the subpoena to testify, but he would only do so under certain conditions, which were unfortunately granted to him, which was that he would only testify behind closed doors. He would not supply the committee with the documents they really wanted. He did give them 40,000 documents, but none of them had anything to do with anything. Just a bunch of garbage that did not address any of the questions, nor were they any of the documents that were requested. He gave them 40,000 documents they didn't care or need or want. But he did not give them any documents that they actually wanted that would answer any of their questions. None of them. They wanted to know who paid for the dossier. They wanted to know who funded it. They wanted to know who some of the sources were. And they wanted to know who leaked it. They wanted to know who paid. There was a Republican, and then later it's alleged a Democrat donor. And of course, we've been following here on TowerGate almost every single day, it seems like, the FBI and the Justice Department flat out refusing to cooperate with any of the congressional committees on the dossier. They don't want to provide any information. They don't want to talk about the dossier at all. They're being forced by subpoena to cooperate. So it took a subpoena to get GPS Fusion in there, and only behind closed doors, and would not answer the questions that they really wanted to know. It was a BS session. As far as your issues with CrowdStrike, and you're suggesting that, oh, it's been proven that the Russians hacked the DNC. No, it hasn't. CrowdStrike themselves in the last 4 years have had to come out publicly and face the embarrassment over getting it wrong on 3 major investigations they were a part of. They also refused to come and testify in front of Congress. They have been backing away at CrowdStrike from the dossier for the past 5-6 months now. We've been covering that as well. They want nothing to do with it. There was 2 other companies that also supposedly looked at this information, but the hacking and that type of thing. But they have no credibility either. They're Democratic donors. The fact of the matter is, CrowdStrike has no credibility. And we've had many other sources that have looked at the Guccifer 2.0 files and verified that Guccifer 2.0 couldn't possibly have been the person who hacked into the DNC or released the DCCC emails or anything like that. It's all a staged event by CrowdStrike. That's what most likely happened, and there's overwhelming evidence. But by and far, the most compelling piece of evidence is that we have Julian Assange himself, the man who actually published those documents. And he has never been proven to be a liar, nor has he ever, in his time with WikiLeaks, ever published a single word, not a single word, of anything that has been proven to be wrong. And Mr. Assange says it was not the Russians that were the source of the DNC hacks. He's trying to cut a deal right now to show that, to bring the facts with him and reveal them to the whole world. But he wants to try to get a deal so that he can get out of his house arrest over there in the UK in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy. So, Mr. Fall Speed, everything that you're suggesting, everything that Mad Cow is suggesting, her entire report from the fake news outlet at embassy is bullshit. And you are bullshit, Mr. Fall Speed. We've been covering this story for 6, 7, 8 months here on TowerGate. Go back and watch my videos. I've covered it all. You're getting everything wrong. You are 100% incorrect, Mr. Fall Speed. Mr. Steele has absolutely no intention or no interest whatsoever in cooperating with any hearings, any investigations, or anything else. He's locked up in a civil lawsuit right now, and he's trying to save his butt, and he's distancing himself from the dossier. That's what he's doing. He's trying to save his neck. That's what's really happening, Mr. Fall Speed. Now, let's get to Stephen Paddock. Well, who is he? That is the question. Hard to answer the question of motive until you can understand a little bit about the individual. And it appears here that we have some conflicting information, some things that don't add up about Mr. Paddock. So let's just try to work through this as best we can. And I'm kind of giving you my gut, where my gut's wanting to take me. It's hard because we have information out there, but we don't know if it's real information or if it's false information. It's hard to separate because we can now see that the CIA is pipelining false information to the corporate media. They're now trying to buttress their claim that he was mentally, challenged or not in a good mental state, maybe a little crazy, whatever. So his mental health was failing or something like that. This is kind of what they're trying to do to buttress their lone wolf gunman theory. I certainly understand that because that's what they always do. But let's go and look at this thing with a kind of a common sense point of view from what we can ascertain from facts that we can assume are mostly true. Well, we have his girlfriend who said he is a kind, caring, quiet man. Well, maybe he was a kind, caring, quiet man. At which point, something crazy happened. Something happened that's unexplainable. Maybe we'll find out what that is. I don't believe that. I believe that was an act. I believe this guy had a secret life. I believe there was two Stephen Paddocks. The one that he showed the world on the outside and the real Stephen Paddock on the inside. That's what the facts suggest to me. We have his brother who's come out and said, yeah, he wasn't radical, he wasn't political, blah, 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 blah. He was a nice guy, he was just a regular guy, just a normal guy, all this. But his brother, I don't know, there's just something about, the interviews I've seen with him, which is like 2 or 3 interviews. It just, I don't know, my gut's wanting to reject this. I think he knows more than he's saying, and I also don't think he knew his brother quite that well. His brother had lived pretty much on the West Coast for almost 20 some odd years, so they couldn't have been that close. I know Stephen Paddock gave his brother some money, set him up with some real estate, got him going in some real estate, some stuff like that, helped him retire, that type of thing. But as far as the secret life of Stephen Paddock is where I want to try to focus, because there's 2 Stephen Paddocks. There's the one he showed the world on the outside, and there's the real Stephen Paddock. That's the one I'm trying to understand. Let's just keep going in that direction. Yeah, this idea that he was the first thing we got, if you remember, the night that it was happening or the morning after it happened, and we started getting all the reports that he was just a good old boy. Oliver Twist. Just a good old boy who snapped. I said from day one that this guy wasn't a good old boy who snapped. No way. That doesn't add up at all, and I never believed that. Again, I believe he's got 2 lives. I believe he's got one life that he showed other people and another secret life. We're hearing, of course, began hearing right away that he was converted to radical Islam, and of course, ISIS is still claiming that this is true. Well, I give this on a scale of 1 to 10, I give this about a 2 or a 3 possibility. A very low possibility, very low probability. I know he went on some cruises in the last couple of years, including cruises to Europe and parts of the Middle East. I know that he's traveled to the Philippines a couple times with his girlfriend to meet her family. I know that ISIS is active in the Philippines. It is very possible, quite possible, that somehow he may have found some interaction with ISIS. That's possibility, but I give it a low probability, 2 to 3 on a 1 to 10 scale. Mainly the reason I think this is because he's 64 years old. And if he was 19 or 17 or 25 even, I might say, okay, it's possible. He's a young person that could be easily, sucked into something like this. But the guy was 64 years old. Usually by the time you're in your 60s, you've got pretty hard, long-held opinions and beliefs. Even if you're non-religious, non-political, that's your hardcore beliefs. You're non-religious and non-political. How you get a guy who's had these long-held beliefs for all these years of his life, gets to be in his 60s, and all of a sudden you're able to, turn him? That's really hard for people to reject or reject old beliefs that they've held for many years, or to accept new beliefs, at that age in their life. It's just, the older you get, the more hardened you become in the positions you hold. You don't see many people flip in their 60s, their belief systems. It's possible. Again, I give it a 2 on a 3 scale. Then we have the allegations by Antifa that he was one of theirs, that apparently his girlfriend was one of theirs and she got him involved. Well, again, it's possible. Because he is a citizen in the U.S. We did just have the big presidential election. Maybe he was never all that political, but maybe his girlfriend was, and maybe she got him kind of radicalized or involved in the politics of things, and maybe she was on the left, and maybe he decided, hey, that's my girlfriend, I'm siding with her, I'm on the left. Maybe that was him in that pink costume at the rally. I mean, these things are possibilities, but I just don't give this a very high probability either. I think, again, I give this maybe a higher probability than ISIS. Again, I give ISIS on a 1 to 10, I give it maybe 2 to 3. On Antifa, I give it maybe a 5. somewhere in that range of 5, not much more than that. I have a rough time believing that a guy at his age and in his situation, and with everything else we know, is, connected. Now, I know that Alex Jones is reporting he has a source or sources that say that they found Antifa material, ISIS material in his room or in his house or something like that. But at this point, that's Alex Jones's sources. They're not mine. I don't know. Some of the things that Alex says turn out to be true. Sometimes they turn out not to be true. I just don't know. I'm not willing to go there yet. I would need to see, more information on that. At this point, the authorities are not reporting that. The Las Vegas police is not reporting that. The sheriff's department, nor is the government reporting that. They're giving some indications that it's possible that he could have been having some association because he did take some cruises that went into Europe and the Middle East. It's possible, but I don't know. When I look at this guy and look at the way he's been carrying on and what he's been doing, acquiring all these weapons and explosives and all this sort of stuff, he wiped his social media accounts and all these things. It just, I think there's something going on here. I think he has a secret life, but I don't think it's, again, I kind of, where his brother's coming from. I don't think it's all that political, really, or even, religious or anything like that. But if it's one of the two, it's probably the political thing. It's probably, maybe the Antifa, or maybe he's anti-Trump. Maybe he hates right-wingers. Something like that. I mean, I think it's very possible. But I don't necessarily believe he had to have an affiliation with any groups to do that. He could just be an anti-right winger or a Trump hater or something like that, and thought he would shoot up a bunch of people who are likely to be Trump supporters. I mean, I think that's possible. But again, getting back to his secret life, the way this is looking to me is that I see this guy who's not known to be an avid hunter. He's not a gun collector. No one knows him to be a big fan of. He doesn't talk about his gun collection. He doesn't talk about his acquisition of all these weapons. He doesn't lead his brother or his girlfriend to even know that he even has an interest in these weapons. He doesn't appear to like to go out target shooting. He doesn't appear to really have any real fascination in the public life with firearms. But obviously, if you go into his home, 2 homes that he had, and his hotel room there, and you find all these weapons and all this ammunition and explosives, you can only come to one of 2 conclusions. And that is either he did procure all this stuff, or it was all planted. I don't believe at this point that all this stuff was planted in his homes and in his hotel room. I don't really believe that. I believe something else is going on here. We also have his lifestyle. Yeah, he owned 5 properties, apparently one of which his brother lives in, and his brother's paying him off for it, I guess. And then he's got another property, I guess, in Florida, which is a rental. He's got these 2 homes in Nevada. A total of 5 properties. He's got 2 airplanes. Okay, he's got a $3 million, apparently $3 million net worth. But this doesn't explain, having that kind of net worth doesn't really explain the cash flow. He's sending $100,000 to his girlfriend. He's taking all these cruises. He's spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a week gambling. And I'm not so sure that he was winning all the time. He may have won as much as he lost. He may have lost more than he won. Maybe he wasn't making his money from gambling. That's what I'm suggesting here. I think his gambling was maybe a front. If anything, he may have been using gambling as a way of laundering money that he was earning some other way. So he's got all these weapons, and he's got a lot of cash flow. A lot of weapons and a lot of cash flow. He's not a collector. He's not an avid hunter. He's not a target shooter. He's not a competition shooter. And he hides largely this fascination he has with all these firearms. He's got all this cash, all this money, and he apparently liked to pay cash for a lot of things. Paid cash for a lot of these weapons, all this ammunition, the explosives, and all this stuff. He has access to these types of things. He has an interest in acquiring them. This is where I think the secret life comes in. I think that this guy Mr. Paddock, Stephen Paddock, it looks like to me that this guy had another occupation. Looks like to me he had another occupation that was making him a lot of money, a lot of cash type money that couldn't be tracked. He needed, of course, to clean that money, so what better way to do it than in Vegas? Lots and lots and lots of people who earn money illegally launder their money in Vegas. It's an easy thing to do. In fact, it's a great way to do it. Go there with a bunch of cash and lose some of it. You don't care. It's mad money. You're making loads of mad money, hand over fist. Does no good to you if you get caught with the illegal mad money, so you're willing to pay a percentage of that, almost like a fee, to launder it. And a good way to do it is in a casino. My gut instinct right now is telling me that this guy, Stephen Paddock, was involved in arms dealing or arms smuggling, something to do with moving weapons. I think that's where he was making all that money. And I think his gambling, while he enjoyed gambling, obviously, I think that was probably as much a way for him to launder that dirty money he was making in the weapons business. He's got weapons, he's got explosives. His interest wasn't weapons. His interest was money. That's what the facts tell us. Wasn't an avid hunter, wasn't a target shooter, wasn't a collector, but he's got all these weapons. He's got all this free cash, lots of cash to throw around. Where's he making it? Assets like real estate and airplanes, they're nice to have. They're good assets, but they're not cash flow. This guy had lots of cash flow. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a week that he could spend in gambling, buying airplanes, taking trips, giving his brother money, giving his girlfriend money, large sums of money. This guy was spending a lot of money. What business was he in that was providing him with the cash flow? I wonder what business he might have been in that was providing him with all this cash flow. My gut tells me he was somehow involved in the arms dealing business. And where is he at? He's in Vegas. He's in Vegas, where there is a lot of that sort of thing that happens. A lot of contact people for organized crime in the weapons smuggling, weapons arms dealing business are in Vegas. Was he connected with organized crime? Maybe. Was he just working for himself? Maybe. Was he just a middleman? Maybe. I don't think he was a high-level player. I think he probably was some sort of a mid-level or maybe even low-level middleman, arms guy. I think he may have made some investments in some weapons. I think he may have some contacts. But I don't think it had anything to do with ISIS or anything like that. I just think it was purely a profit-driven business that he's probably been doing for a very long time. And it may just be local stuff. It may be just with local organized crime or something like that. Clearly, he had to be involved with some sort of organized crime because that's how you move weapons and stuff like that. These types of weapons don't move on the street like that. And obviously, the weapons that he had, the types of weapons he had, he bought and paid for. Obviously, he wasn't interested in selling those weapons. They were just toys. You certainly wouldn't be selling weapons that are registered to you, that you bought legally. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Paddock has an alias. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Paddock has an alias. And under that alias, you just might find that he had some other properties. Maybe even a storage or warehouse facility. And in that storage or warehouse facility, maybe you would find lots of weapons of the illegal type. Possibly automatic machine guns, claymore mines, shoulder-fired rockets, the types of things that you only get when you're dealing with mafia, organized crime type gun dealers, gun smugglers, arms dealers, and things like that. And those people are always connected to intelligence. intelligence agencies use mafia arms dealers so that they don't have their fingerprints on the transactions when they move weapons around the world to groups that they support. The CIA uses organized crime and arms dealers who are part of the organized crime networks to move weapons around, to procure weapons. The CIA, the intelligence agencies are deeply, and have been for many, many years, deeply rooted in with organized crime in the business of arms dealing. We know that Mr. Paddock worked for a defense contractor. He lives in Vegas. He's got lots of weapons. He's got lots of cash flow. My gut is telling me that Mr. Paddock had a secret life, that he probably was making loads of cash in the illegal weapons dealing business, and that the cash that he was making, he was laundering that money through gambling. That is what my gut is telling me. That is what this looks like. I could be wrong as far as being associated with organized crime or Antifa or ISIS. Maybe we need more information to be able to go quite that far. But again, why he did it and the motive and all that still needs to be thought through. But I'm focusing on where do you get all the money for all this cash flow that he had, and how does that tie into all these weapons for a guy who apparently wasn't all that interested in weapons. And I didn't see him shoot himself in the head, did you? Do you know anybody that saw him shoot himself in the head? Is there any videotape or pictures of him shooting himself in the head? Are there any witnesses who's come forward that said they saw him shoot himself in the head? I don't know of any. Things get pretty dark when you start going down that road. I'm sure we'll get there, but for this video, I just wanted to focus on who is Stephen Paddock. And my gut instinct and everything that I can see right now looks like to me this guy was making money, lots of it, and I don't think he was doing it in gambling. He may have been losing money gambling. I think he was involved in the arms dealing business, and I think he was laundering money with his gambling, not making it. That's what my gut tells me. I'd be interested in your comments. If I'm wrong, tell me. Thank you so much for tuning in. TowerGate, day 214, October 7, 2017. I'll see you Sunday evening. Thank you so much. Good night.